All right, look at you. I just cannot. Like, you are just so beautiful, and I'm just so grateful that we get to spend this little bit of time together and talk about this initiative around Dearest Black Woman. Like,
Yes.
man, let me tell you, just, you know how my mind works. We've been in relationship long enough. You know how my mind works. I get a wind of something and I just run. Like, you and
In the
Melvin ain't gonna
gold
talk
medal,
about me. I
100-yard
already told
dash.
you.
I know. I had to laugh. I said, well, that's typical RaShaunda. Get download and run, baby. Let's do it. Who we
Yeah.
waiting for? Don't nobody. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, for real though, like, I feel like that in like all the ways. So I'm glad that you were able to fit me into your schedule at the very last minute, you know, and I'm appreciative because I know how important this is to the community to have such conversations. Like, for me, the Dearest Black Woman, I'm gonna give you just a little bit of extra backdrop on it. Is
Yes. Let's talk about it.
like going through these therapy sessions that I've been going through, right? And I'm a big advocate of like, Black women, get you some therapy if you feel like you need it. Even if you don't feel like you need it, talk to somebody, have somebody you can talk to about all the things, because we got a lot of stuff that needs to be downloaded through us so that we can really get into life the way that we deserve to be in life.
Yeah.
And so this started as just me saying and making a statement one day on Facebook and just saying, Dearest Black Woman, like, and just kind of going off with these rants and these blurbs about different things, whether it was from motherhood, whether it was about parenting, whether it was about reproductive health, whether it was about business management and, you know, entrepreneurship. But all of these things have been coming out and swirling around because I'm able to now process them a little bit different going through this therapy.
Gotcha.
So it was a part to really bring some of this up, and the therapy came like after the transition of my father. I feel like I needed it before that, but it really hit home and said, girl, you need to go talk to somebody, you know, afterwards. And so here we are. And the series is just basically conversations, right? Conversations about ways that we can uplift the voice of our dearest Black women, through life experiences, through the challenges that we go through, as well as like the victories of sisterhood, you know, womanhood, motherhood, all of the stages that we go through, right? And so that's why we're here today. And I'm so grateful for having you and you allowing me to hold space for us today.
Yes, this is exciting. I mean, I am looking forward to moving in some similar directions as we get through this year and next year. And I hope that this is the first of many more sit downs and chit chats, because, you know, we always have fruitful dialogue and space holding and idea exchange and fertilization, I should say, of each other's ideas and supporting things. And so I'm excited. And Dearest Black Woman, come on. We need you healed and whole and happy and joyful and experiencing life.
Yeah, all of the things, all of the things. And so, like, I guess like we're gonna just jump right on in here, because I wanted to be candid, but I also wanted to be, you know, something that people can have a theme to follow, right?
Yeah, strategic.
Yes. Yeah, we're gonna be strategic about these conversations. And so today's topic, this is part 2. Part 1 took place yesterday, and all this information will be uploaded to our YouTubes and our social media platforms and things of that nature over these next few days and coming weeks, right? And so this is part 2, and I am RaShaunda Lugrand, and I'm founder of the InTune Mother Society. And today I am with my good girlfriend, Nicole Deggins of Sista Midwife Productions. And together we get ready to like comb through some of these cultural identifiers, right, of birth justice, and as a community organizers and practivists, which mean that we practice our advocacy, our activism. We do this, like this is life, right? And so we want to talk about this movement today. And I'm doing this for Black History Month too, because I feel like we need to be able to see that Black history is not just history, but it's present day work too. And that history is what drives us to do these present day initiatives and movements, right?
And
And so,
today's is tomorrow's, today is tomorrow's, yesterday's, right? However that thing goes, like today's is tomorrow's, yesterday, right?
right.
So tomorrow, this will be history because it's been yesterday.
Yes. Yes. So I want to talk today, like we're going to talk about this phrase that you have coined as this movement, birth is the revolution.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't have my pen on today.
That's
I feel
right.
naked. I feel naked.
You just said the words. You just said the words.
Well, it's in my heart. It's in my heart. And so we're going to talk about that, and we're going to really bring on like what this is about, you know, and how can we utilize this in our everyday walk? How can we make this a 366 day, you know, movement that we progress with understanding what that means? And so we're going to get into it. And I want you to introduce yourself, tell us your name, tell us, you know, what it is that you want us to know about you, and share something about yourself that puts us in alignment with the rest of this conversation.
All right. So as you said, I am Nicole Deggins. I am the founder and CEO of Sista Midwife Productions. I am Sista Midwife on all social media platforms. And I am a believer that we have the right to thrive in our lives, right? And so I start with that because I really feel like since I met, we both have like shifted, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about our history together, but we've shifted and grown and moved and shaken and done all sorts of different things. And I'm really excited about what is unfolding in front of me. This is my 50th year, girl. Hashtag road to 50, just throwing that out there, right? And so I came into this work literally 30 years ago when I was a new nurse working postpartum, and then moved into labor and delivery. Then a couple of years after that, I became a midwife. And then after working as a midwife in DC and working as a midwife in Mississippi, working a little bit as a midwife in Louisiana, working as a labor and delivery nurse, literally from coast to coast, labor and delivery, postpartum, newborn, well baby nursery, from coast to coast. I did these things. And along the way, I started realizing that birth is jacked up for so many people across the board. And because I'm from Louisiana and spent a lot of my time working in Louisiana, Mississippi, something in my mind thought it was, you know, they tell us, oh, it's the South. Racism's in the South. Bad stuff is in the South. The South is also bad. And so that's what I had that rhetoric in my mind. But when I started traveling from California to New Hampshire, I was like, no, it's the same way everywhere. And along the way, I'm gonna cut my story short to how we got here, but in 2010, I moved home to New Orleans and I founded Sista Midwife Productions at the end of 2011. I'm also in the 10th year of my business. And what started off really as an opportunity or a desire to just empower families with truthful information turned into a full-on movement where I'm now training birth workers. I have a statewide training initiative. I'm participating in all sorts of councils and committees and conversations at the federal, state, and local level, impacting advocacy change, working inside of facilities, working with individuals, working inside of organizations, training people, having these conversations on an ongoing basis, always with a goal and a desire to infuse a little bit of something different so that people can begin to see this thing that we're dealing with in birth justice and birth advocacy from various lenses. A lot of times I feel like people get on the railroad and they're only seeing it with one lens. And so my vision and job has always been to help people color the lens a little bit differently from whatever perspective they're in. And I remember even when I was newer in the work, being at like meetings about, I don't know, housing, meetings about social justice, about food. It doesn't matter where I am. You give me a topic and I promise you I can tell you how it relates to how we have babies. Anything. I can bring it back to the impact of birth on that situation. That's part of birth being the revolution for me, right? Because it impacts everything. How we are employed or not employed, how we show up in society, how our babies are parented or not parented, how we show up, our children show up at school, how the economics of our country, the amount of depression and anxiety that we're dealing with, so much. Ask me anything, I could bring it back to birth. It's a skill set I got.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, thank you for giving us that beautiful introduction, because what that puts me into, the mindset of is like, we got to look at where you came from with this, right? We got to see how you started and how you got here, and like, tell us a little bit more about like, how did you know that you wanted to be a midwife? Like, what did that story look like for you?
So I would say that there's two stories, right? There is one story that was in 3D, this world consciousness, where I was at the time, this was in 94, 95. And at that time, I was what they now have termed a pescatarian. That's new, right? We wasn't calling people pescatarians in the 90s. So I was a pescatarian. And often ate vegetarian foods. I was natural. I had my hair shorter than this, which was something that was not really in vogue or in style. And I came home to New Orleans and I wasn't eating pork and I wasn't eating beef and I wasn't perming my hair and I wasn't doing these things. And so, my coworkers used to just like get me, man. We used to clown at work. They used to call me Mother Earth and just like, in a fun, joking way, right? And so whenever there was a family who came into the hospital to have a baby who couldn't have an epidural either because of some sort of legal, they couldn't sign one because they were a teenager or some craziness, or every now and then we had someone who was that afraid of the needle in their back that they didn't have an epidural, they would always be like, Mother Earth, you go get her, you like that kind of stuff, right? So at that time, I didn't really fully understand these connections, but that was the thing. And there was a particular birth that happened with this midwife who used to do prenatal care in the inner city clinics, in the inner city projects. So the projects had a clinic and she did prenatal care in the clinics. Most of the time, she would not come to the birth. Most of the time, she would not come to the birth, and the residents would handle that family when they came to birth. But there was this one particular time that she did come, that I was at work and I became kind of like her birth assistant with this birth. It was myself, the mom, another woman, and that was it in the room. And this birth was so different. And when it came time for the lady to have her baby, I mean, I remember vividly how the mom gave out a sound and she kind of raised up out the chair and the midwife got behind her and cradled her, and it was time for, and she helped her to the bed and the baby was born. I don't even think the mom got fully in the bed, but she used the bed as a place to support herself and to lean. No residents rushed in, the lights didn't go loud, there was no loud screaming, none of that stuff. And I was like, my God, this right here is how birth could be different. This was like, I felt it. I probably was high off of her oxytocin. So I'm in this room like, wow. And so shortly after that birth, that midwife pulled me to the side. And so when I say this is like the 3D world consciousness of the thing, she pulls me to the side and she was like, have you ever thought about being a midwife? And I was like, no, not really. And she talked to me a little bit about it. She was like, I think the girls would really like you. Right. So in her mind, she's an old white lady working in these inner city clinics with a lot of teenage young Black women. And she's like, I know that they don't see me the same way they would see you. And won't you become a midwife so you can come back and work in these clinics? And, kind of made sense. I had a bachelor's degree in nursing. I knew that I didn't want to stay as a bedside nurse forever. And so she planted a seed. And I began to look into programs and ended up going to Emory a couple of years later. Now, from another perspective, midwifery has been following me my whole life. I just didn't know, right? So like my first birth, I was 9 years old. And it's so funny because now I have to always think about the fact that this little cousin of mine is now 40. But at the time that she was being born, I was 9. Her mother was living with us. My mother was in nursing school. And I remember waking up somehow midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. I have no idea really, but I remember my aunt was in labor and I became like her quote doula that they called them today. Now it's called a doula, but I was just there. I was rubbing her. I was getting her a towel. I was holding the bucket while she vomited. My mom was telling me, Nikki, go get this, go do that. So I was doing those things for my aunt. And I remember they finally went back to the hospital because see, they had sent her home in the middle of the night because she wasn't in active labor yet. She was good and active, but she wasn't 4 centimeters, 5 centimeters. So they sent her home. And so, you know, now I can put that understanding to it, but that's what had happened. And so then a few days later, we go to the hospital to pick up my little cousin and my auntie and bring them home. And I was like, my God, this is what she was doing, having this baby. It was so exciting for me. It made me afraid of sex for sure, because it looked really painful to have a baby, but I was super excited about this baby and I was able to make this connection. I often say that us being connected from birth, doing all of our birthing behind closed doors in that big white building makes us more fearful than we need to be, because what it allowed me to do though is make a connection that even though there was this pain that she exhibited in the vomiting and the things, here's this baby. Oh my gosh, she's so cute. She's so cute. So that's one thing, right? In addition to that, I went to St. Bridget's Church, and St. Bridget is a mother goddess person. She is connected to the great mothers. She is a Catholic, a deity or a Catholic saint, but she is the deity of mothering, and you know she's kind of consistent with a Yemenya or an Oshun, and some depending on which theories you look at and which text you read, right? So I grew up in St. Bridget Church, and I was a devout little Catholic girl who went to St. Bridget Church. So I think about that when I learned in a doula training that I was teaching just a few, at this point, maybe 5 years ago, the connection of St. Bridget to mothering and parent. I say, man, I grew up in St. Bridget Church. That's deep. Wow. My freshman year roommates had a friend who came into our dorm room to visit one day. And I'm talking to the little girl and she was complaining. I loved my undergraduate school. I went to Georgetown University, Hoya Saxa, loved it, okay? So she's sitting, and I'm feeling so privileged as a little Black girl from New Orleans, the opportunity to go to a university like Georgetown. I'm feeling like, you know, this is such a good opportunity for me. And she's sitting on the bed complaining about how much she hates it. It sucks. I don't like it here. The only reason why I'm here is because my mother is a professor here and I get free tuition. So I said, really? What program does your mother teach? And she said, the most lame program ever. She's a midwife. This is what this girl tells me, right? Now, at that time, I did not know what a midwife was. But I feel like that story stuck with me for whatever, and that's so I say to you that yes, I had this midwife say to me, you should consider being a midwife, and that was like a seed that got planted. But I can also look back across different decades of my life and see where midwifery slowly was always tapping on that shoulder, right? Like most of us who do this work, it's been a calling for a long time. We don't always answer it when we first get called.
So let me weave some of this into, oh man, some of the information that you shared. One, St. Bridget, right? I also went to Catholic school as a young girl, and that was the name of my Catholic school. Okay, that's also my mother's name.
Okay, come on.
And so when I told my mother not too long ago, I said, Mama, do you know that you were a saint? You know, in one capacity or another, and that I get my desires to support women in childbirth through you. And she was like, what are you talking about? Show me this. And I sent her, like, the school when I was there was called St. Rita's. but
Okay.
originally it was St. Brigitte, and it was the
Ah,
school, it was the Black Catholic school in my state,
in your area.
in my
Okay.
area, you know, and it was a part of a an assembly. So they were
Mhm,
all over, but
mhm.
this was, you know, here in Indiana when I was there. And so that's amazing, you know, to hear that come full circle for me too in this conversation.
So beautiful.
It lets you know that, like you said, it's always tapping you on your
Tapping
shoulder.
you. And I found out because I had this girl in my doula training who was she's Irish, like her mama came from Ireland, not like my
Mm.
great great grandfather, no, like her mama sound like Irish, Ireland, right? So anyway, she had this big tattoo on her arm, and I love looking at people's tattoos and hearing stories about why they got their tattoo. So I asked her about the tattoo, and she said it was Goddess Danu. And she begins to describe Goddess Danu. And to me, I was like, oh, okay, so it's the Irish Yemen. Yeah, okay, whatever. And then she continued talking, and she was like, yeah, and in Catholicism, she's Saint Bridget. And I was like, girl, stop. And that's how I really found out and then dug a little bit more into it. So yeah, I love
Wow.
it.
That's something. And I found out about it from not just from me going to school, but also as a beekeeper. There's a lot of goddesses associated with beekeeping, and she's one.
Right.
You
Yes.
know, and so
Yes.
it's really a heavy feminine energy, and like that's what this work, you know, is about, bringing back that divine feminine, you know, where we could say, you know, that woman is God, right? Because that's how we
Yes.
create and we bring forward and bring forth, and that's why these saints and goddesses are worshipped in that capacity, because this is the work we do, you know,
Yes.
as
Ma'am.
women. So okay, so now that you've guided us along this journey, right, how has this impacted your present work today? How has this made room for things that you're most proud of, and then how do you see yourself pushing this work forward?
Yeah. So for me, I think I have just tried to do my duty to now follow spirit and to be led wherever I'm supposed to be led in doing the work that I'm continuing to listen to. Okay, spirit, how do you want to use me now? And I say that because initially when I started Sista Midwife Productions, and you talked about this, your platform, you also want to talk about like entrepreneurship and business ideas and things of that nature, right? So when I first started Sista Midwife Productions, I thought that I was going to be a B2C business, which is a business to consumer. I wanted to directly coach mamas. I wanted to directly give information to mamas. I wanted to have clients and do virtual classes with my moms and prepare them for their births. But as I began to do freeconferencecall.com before there was Zoom and before there was Webinex and all of those things, I was doing these free web conference call classes that I would do. And people could sign up for the class. And overwhelmingly, 90% of the people who signed up for my birth plan myth calls and showed up for any of the trainings that I was doing, they were doulas and lactation consultants. And if they were a mom, they were a mom who had already had 2 or 3 births, and she was pissed off and she was trying to really find some more information so she could empower her community. So I realized, wait a minute, my audience is not the direct consumer. My audience is different. In the midst of all of that, I was also doing birth advocacy work with various other national advocacy training organizations. And it became very clear that there was this thing called a doula that was beginning to slowly pique the interest of consumers as well as people for a career path. And I literally was called by my community, literally called by my community. We had a meeting of a room full of Black women who were interested in doing birth work. The room was packed. It was very exciting. We created a plan about how we were going to educate the community using WIC, using Healthy Start, using the clinics. And we were going to tell them about doulas and tell them about midwives. And at the meeting ended, everybody was excited. It was a high note. And then the next day, I was really sitting, looking at the notes and looking at everything. And I was like, this sounds real cute, but we don't have no doulas here. At that time, we had 2 doula collectives. One was definitively Caucasian and the other was definitively Black. Of the Black doula collective, there were, I think there were 7 of them. Of the 7, At least 4 of them were actively supporting moms, and a few of the others like occasionally. This one was older, this one was going back to school, so they weren't, this one was changing her mind, so they weren't actively all actually doing birth work either. So we really didn't have a pool of people to really tell the community about. So I was like, okay, all right, well, somebody got to train some doulas. And I created a doula training. Initially, I was doing my doula training connected to another organization, and that didn't work out. And so I called together my students who had registered for my first course, and I said, well, this didn't work out. So you can train with me. Oh, no, I didn't say that. I said, so I don't know what you want me to do, because there is no national training organization that I'm connected with. And they said, we don't care. You've been doing this for 20 years. We want you to teach us how to support women and families in birth. And I said, okay. And I put my big girl panties on, and I sat down at the computer, and I put together my PowerPoints, and I created a doula training. I ordered the supplies I needed offline, and the rest, as they say, is history. You know, I started off just doing in-person trainings, 3 to 5 per year. And due to COVID, we've gone online. That too was something that I was called to. People repeatedly were asking me, can you do something online? Can you do something online? And I was like, oh, I really like my training. I create such a beautiful experience. We have this sharing circle. We love and kumbaya. We do rituals. It's so great. I don't want to go online. Well, COVID said, what you gonna do now? And I had a couple of people say, I think you should do it. This is the perfect time and you should do it. Don't wait, do it right now. Pull the trigger today. And so I did. And so now at this point, I have done 3 virtual trainings. I don't even know how many in-person trainings I've done, but I've definitively trained over 500 people now worldwide. And so I feel like my work follows the path of I'm being pulled in the directions that I need to go in. You know, the current work that I'm doing in Louisiana, we have something called a Healthy Birth Louisiana initiative, where we are training what we call healthy birth ambassadors. So a healthy birth ambassador is a perinatal community health worker. They are trained to be a childbirth educator, a doula, a certified breastfeeding specialist, as well as a community health worker. Because I understand that they out here in the streets trying to make people think that the doula is the one and only thing that's going to save Black maternal health. They're putting so much attention, so much weight, so much responsibility on the back of doulas, which is unfair to the profession of being a doula. Mm-hmm. That said, we created this Healthy Birth Louisiana initiative at a minimum to give people a more robust support and education so they can support families more extensively from preconception through the postpartum period. And now, as I'm flowing with my new personal spiritual journey, my doula training, you know, I was thinking recently, how do I want to really begin shifting how I talk about my training? Is first of all, it's a birth sister training, right? I don't train doulas per se. I use that term because that's the term people know. So that's the term I use. But we not doulas, we making birth sisters out here in these streets. You are sisters for other sisters in birth, right? To help them know that birth is the revolution. And as I move more in my spiritual journey, my training continues to evolve and to shift to really become a personal healing space to help birth workers be better birth workers as they become the best versions of themselves. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's shifted and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And the results, the emails, the affirmations, the posts, the testimonials that I received let me know that this is how I want to help and heal and move my work forward, because I know that we can't heal nobody if we are constantly under the gun and sick ourselves. And so, no, you don't have to be fully healed to help somebody, but we must at least understand that we need to be on the path of healing. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so my work just continues to shift and evolve the way Spirit is aligning me with my audience and my clients and my students and the people who show up to ask to receive from me. They give me things. I don't mean like physical things, right? But they give me, and then I know how to move.
Definitely.
Did that answer the question?
You did, you did, you did. You gave it to us in a very elegant and poetic and Black way, right? Like, for real. You said so much, and it just, really makes me think about how we have to have a lot of ingenuity in this work. And you mentioned something a little bit earlier about like people being like streamlining this identity of what it means to be a part of birth justice, to be a part of birth work, to do activist work within your community, and to help people to understand a broader perspective. Now, when we talk about doula work, right, we're not saying that it's not what it is, because it needs to have its space for the community to receive it in its way. But we're also saying that there has to be an expansion, right?
Yes.
There has to be an expansion, and then that becomes a whole system of care that doesn't overwhelm the doula, can support the families, can have a advocate that understands how to navigate the other resources that are necessary, like you said, breastfeeding, preconception, postpartum support services, and then building that capacity supports the nurses in the hospitals, the physicians, so that they don't have overwhelm and fatigue. So when you create these systems, that becomes a revolutionary way to experience birth.
Yes, in and of itself, just removing the concept that there is preconception, there is pregnancy, there is birth, there is breastfeeding, there is parenting. Removing that concept of siloing each individual thing in and of itself is revolutionary.
Yeah.
I'm a birth doula. I'm a postpartum doula. I'm an abortion doula. How about you just help people in the existence, in the midst of their lives, regardless of where they are on the reproductive justice, on the reproductive spectrum? Where are they? You don't have to be a lost doula. If somebody you know is pregnant and have a miscarriage, then you should be prepared to support them through that.
Exactly.
You shouldn't have to call no lost doula. That's just me. That's just me, RaShaunda.
No, that ain't just you. That's us. That's how we move, and I think that has a lot to do with the understanding of what is necessary, and like you said, what the community really calls for. But we've gotten so distracted, and I like to use the word contaminated. Like, it's a toxicity within the profession now, that you have to have all of these different silos. And then you wonder why people are burnt out. You wonder why there's no real entrepreneurial connection to the work, and why there can't be wealth generation and building, because individuals are too busy trying to find out how to letter themselves with these different identities, right? Within the same context. If you're serving, you're serving.
And just serve. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So now that you've given us all of that, like, tell me this, did we answer, like, what are you most proud of? Did we say that?
I did not say that. What I have often said is my training is one of the things I have been most proud of.
Okay.
Because I put it upon myself. I knew that one of my goals was to change the lives of thousands of families. And when I was a B2C, I just was going to work real hard, and I was going to serve thousands of families. But now I know that if I have trained 500 birth workers, birth keepers, birth sisters across this world, oh, I'm touching thousands of families.
Yes.
I know I am. And I see the work. I see individuals who've taken training with me in different classes, coming together and partnering. Oh my God, it just warms my heart. I am proud that I have been able to stay true to my vision of what birth is and mentoring is and partnership is, regardless of the noise that was happening in other spaces. And I've been able to move forward to create the brand and the concepts and the language that I have chosen to create, and that it has been able to reach people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when somebody comes to my training and they say, I came to your training because my girlfriend took your class last year and she said, ada. Or I came to your class because I met so-and-so who trained with you. Like when you train with me and you go out and you open up your mouth and you tell somebody else to come train with me, I know I've done my job.
Definitely.
So it makes me proud, because I know that through my training, I am empowering, elevating, and changing lives. Not only the people who I train, but I receive from every class I receive, because as I pour in, you know how like when you're giving somebody advice, you can't do nothing but listen to your own advice.
Mm-hmm.
So every time I'm doing a training, I am reminded of my own self-care. I am reminded of my own power of oxytocin and melanin. I am reminded of the power of connection. I am reminded of the power of good soulful music to elevate my soul. Every class, those reminders continue to come, which then makes me move closer to consistent elevation, spiritual affirmation work in my personal life. So it's beautiful. I would say that my training at this point continues to be, even though it does continue to evolve, it continues to be the thing I'm most proud of.
Yes, yes. And I love that you talked about going from being a, B2C to a B2B, like, and whether we look at, the B meaning like birth workers or business, like we can talk about exactly. That perspective being a transitional thought, because most of the time, like, that's how I feel, like, man, my company is about going to the consumer, but then there's individuals who come and they say, hey, but I'm in this work too, and I want to be able to know more about how to activate my work, and so you have to expand and grow, in your idea of how you really want to show up versus how the universe pulls you. Like, what was your soul's contract, right? Or what was your sacred contract with the universe that you was going to do? So you have to be able to differentiate, like, how are you going to really be able to prosper in doing this work? And so yeah, and getting clear on that. And so I'm excited, to be able to continue to, like, even walk in your footsteps as a, person who has trained. Like, I have my certification. I'm a SMP alumni, and I'm proud to be able to know that I sat with you at Jessica's house, right?
Yeah.
And trained with those women. And like, I remember in the beginning, I was like, you know what? I'm so mad because, my thoughts are, when people get this information, you should want to go out there and serve your community and build and do and be ready. Like, but everybody is not like that. And you helped me to slow down my complaint, because I was irritated by the fact that so many people train and they get this information, but they just hold it.
But the one thing that I could tell you though is, and this is, I let all that go because in the beginning, most people who I trained were not doing the work. Now it's different. Now they get out there, they do the work. But what I know is this: whether you do the work or not, you can't get this information and your little sister get pregnant and you not use it.
And you not use it. That was it.
And your best friend get pregnant and you not use it. You're gonna use it, even if it's just for yourself and your daughter.
Yeah.
And for me, if all you do is pump the brakes on your 22-year-old daughter from getting an unnecessary elective induction, that's a win for me.
Yeah.
If all you do
if it's just for one, if
it's just for one, breastfeed from 3 weeks to 6 weeks, that's a win for me. So I for me, it's just wins. It's wins. Even if you don't do the work, I know this information is sitting with you differently, and it has changed you at a cellular level. So now you're going to move in the world differently, which is going to impact the people who you move in the world with. So yeah, I used to be taken aback like that. They don't want to really be a doula. They just paid the money and took the class for nothing. But then I started realizing everybody is going to come to the information and use it in whatever way makes sense for them.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, you had to put that all the way in my mind. And I was like, okay, be ye transformed.
And I mean, you know, we could think about it. Think about all the lawyers who not practicing law. All the
Yeah.
people, let me backtrack. All of the people who received the Juris Doctorate who are not practicing law. It's buku JDs. It's
Yeah.
buku MDs. It's buku all kind of stuff that, you know, you got a degree in accounting, you got a degree, but that's not what they do.
That's
So,
not what they do.
you know,
You got the information in the event that you ever need it. You can use it. And that's what it's about. Just having
yeah.
the information so that you can apply it at its appropriate time. Yes, yes. So with that being said, this is the appropriate time that I want to just discuss like our relationship, right? And I believe that like everybody needs to have good girlfriends, and no matter like how often you talk, like how you come together. Cause like when I first met you, it was 2013. We were in Atlanta, Georgia, West End at a Matrona retreat.
Yes.
And I had just given birth to my third son, Bryce.
My boo Bryce. Yeah.
It's okay. You like elaborate on how we met and how we stay connected. And I also want you to talk about how important it is to have sisterhood in this work.
Okay, you're gonna have to bring me back to all of these parts of it, but I'm gonna start with how we met. Like, again, spirit will align you to put you in the right places at the right time to receive the stuff that you're supposed to receive. I remember there was a Facebook post about this Black midwifery quantum retreat or Black women's quantum midwifery retreat or something like that. I don't remember. Sister Tolewa, who is a long-standing midwife of community, was putting it together to bring a Caucasian elder, Wapio. And I say that because, girl, I used to talk about Wapio and people would meet her and they'd be like, Nicole, they know me. They know how I roll. So they'll be like, Nicole, why you didn't tell me Wapio was white? Yes! I mean, and so now I just kind of let people know shit. But let me tell you, I love me some Wapio. So Tolewa had worked with Wapio for some years. And she wanted Wapio to do a free or work together. I don't know how the whole thing transpired, but they were working together to bring a free 6-day training quantum midwifery retreat for women of color. I don't really know what that meant, but I knew that it was in Atlanta, a place that I like to visit. And I didn't have to pay money to register, which is always nice. And just something about it felt good. I tried to sign up, overbooked. Don't have no space. You took too long. Okay, all right. At the time, I had a job. The job was 100% travel. And so the way it would work, sometimes I could get the job to drop me in the city. Well, I could just stay in Atlanta until my next assignment. Like I'll stay in Atlanta over the weekend, especially if it was going to save them $500 on a plane ticket. They'd let me do different little things, right? So there was another conference that I was invited to with, it was either Robert Wood Johnson or Kellogg. It was a breastfeeding thing happening at that same time. So I had my job drop me in Atlanta. I went to that conference and then I happened to be on Facebook and bam, there it was. There's room available. Now I'm already in Atlanta. If you wanted to come, you could still come. Bam, sign me up, I'm coming. This was, and you know this to be, and any of my Matrona sisters out there, y'all listen to this, y'all all know this to be true. It was a life-changing experience for all of us. And we connected in a way in that room that I don't believe I've ever connected with individuals in a training, outside of my own trainings, of course, in a training before. It was a room full of Black women, herbalists, midwives, doulas, advocates, mommies, massage therapists, individuals who wanted to just have this beautiful information. And there was so much love in that room the entire time, right? Now, when I talk about the room setup, it was like from the front door to the back, we were sitting all over the floor. And at the back of the room was like the punishment area, you know, the place where you send the troubled children who talk too much, who always doing stuff. And that's where the mothers were with the babies, because there was a couch. So your Marichette was there because she was pregnant, so she was on the couch. And RaShaunda, you were there because you had little breastfeeding Bryce. So they put you on the couch. I'm not sure how I got in the punishment area, but I was in the punishment area. And it's funny because depending on where you were in the room, really not 100%, but impacted who you connected with the most in that experience. So like I connected with the people that was back here and the people in the front of the room connected, but we all connected it was like oxytocin was flowing in that room. We were just estrogen and oxytocin up, and we all fell in love with each other. It's not I have been traveling. I remember one time, I'm gonna tell this quick story just to talk about the depths of this relationship. I hadn't talked to this sister in years, and I was traveling. I didn't really understand. I hadn't paid close attention to my itinerary and ended up having like a 16-hour layover in Miami, right? And so it was like, wait a minute, I need a place to crash for the night. I called one of my matrona sisters. I hadn't talked to her in years. Shit, you think she ain't helped me out? She sure did, because that's how we rock. It's folks who I just love them and been following them and watch what they do because they was one of our matrona sisters. And so you were one of the people who we just fell in love. Now you said this to me one day. I don't remember if it was when I came to Oklahoma, or I feel like it was, you were like, I'm not looking for any more friends. I'm looking for marriage and commitment. Right. And so now when I talk about powerful sisters that I meet who I love, I'm like, shit, we fell in love. We fell in love. And like, that's what I feel like happened with me and you. We fell in love, but we fell out of touch. And then after I had started Sista Midwife Productions, I saw you at a conference in Sedona. Mind you, that particular conference, it was something I wanted to do. I had applied for a scholarship, and at that time in my life, finances were really, 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 really tight. I'm talking beneath the poverty floor, like all the way at the bottom. And I hosted a vision board party for some sisters in my community. And while we were digging through magazines, I found a picture of Sedona. That vision board party was like on Saturday. By Friday, I had my acceptance to the scholarship and to the conference. And we figured out a way to get in the car, me and my partner at the time, as they say, my husband. We got in the car with my baby. Anybody who ever trained with me too, been to a conference, they know Kaylele. Kaylele is now 7. Kaylele, the energy of Kaylele was put into me at the Matrona conference, because she was born in November of 2014, right? The conference was in 2013, and a year later, she was conceived. So anyway, we met at that was the Indie Birth Conference in Sedona. And it was like, oh my God, RaShaunda, we was one of 4 maybe chocolate chips there. Might have just been 3, 2, or was we the only 2? I don't know.
We were the only 2
and
Black women, but then I had my girlfriend Shauna came, and then there was one other woman of color. So there was only 4.
Yeah, and it was just refreshing to see my matrona sister, like, yes. And then you birthed in me the ability to create Sista Midwife Productions as a national training organization, because at that time I had only trained in New Orleans. And you said, I want to bring you to Oklahoma. I'm working on some things in Oklahoma, and I want to bring you out there to do your class. I said, girl, I'd love to come. And it was such a interesting experience, because I don't know if you remember this, my mother was on her way out. And when I came to Oklahoma, it was literally 30 days when I got home and she was gone. I came to Oklahoma in April, my mother passed in May. And that week that I was able to spend, because, I used to do my training over 2 weekends. So I had a week in between, and, our sister Jessica had this big, beautiful house. When you go in her backyard, you feel like you in the forest somewhere. So I remember going out there every day and just being in meditation. My baby was a year and a few months, and just being able to have that slow, quiet stillness that I needed to re-energize me before I went home to bury my mother 30 days later. So much in that, which then comes to, sisterhood comes in all kinds of ways, because even Jessica hosting us in her space, if she wouldn't have hosted us, it wouldn't have happened. She hosted us, she hosted me and my daughter, and allowed me the freedom to be in her space, to use her kitchen, to She hosted another person from out of town who slept at her home. And it was just Luna. Yeah, it was just a beautiful experience. And so, you know, I've always held deep respect for you and for your passion and for your desires. And I think that, you know, when you have an opportunity to connect with another powerful sister, and I would always say to you, you were like oxygen for me. That was the word I would give you and my sister Divine. You and Divine was like oxygen for me, because whenever I would talk to y'all I would be on fire. Yeah, let's go. You know, I would be inspired. I would be energized. I would be ready to rock and roll. And so I've always appreciated that about you and your energy and your willingness to try something new and to try something big and to not shrink small, and to, no matter what was going on outside of, you know, the InTune Mothering Society or the Beehive Birth Consulting, you was gonna rock with Beehive and InTune, and that's what it is. And if you like it, come along. And if you don't, stay to the side. I'm good. That kind of commitment and passion to your individual goals and missions as you move to help community is often not seen, because people get pushed by the grant or change their philosophy because of this thing or that thing. But to be able to be in partnership with someone who just gonna move, this is how we moving, you know, because I feel like that's what I do. And so that's not always an easy road to travel. And so it's always good to have people who are on that road with you, you know? And I, you know, we married for life now. I mean, we didn't exchange no rings or nothing. I'm a size 8, I think, if you're interested.
Like, but I'm like a 6, so we might as well go ahead and do it.
True, it's deep and beautiful. And I really feel like it was oxytocin in that room because that was 6 days that Wapio poured into us. And we were in love afterwards, not just me and you, like, you know, pieces of that core.
Yeah, there's groups of us. And like, I don't know, for you, I stay connected to you, to Yamarsha. Just talked to her last night, you know, and she's on her way to North Carolina. So that definitely made me think of you, because I know you've been doing that traveling and things back and forth. And
North Carolina,
I was like, you know, I just thought about like how important it is. And the sister that's in Barbados, Naima.
Yeah, not Naima. That's who helped me when I was in Florida and didn't have no place to stay. I called her.
She was the first person who opened that door at the Matrona and said, what do you want me to do? You want me to get the baby or the bag? And she was so sassy. And I was like, well, get the baby, because I've been carrying his big butt all day. I can carry my own bags. And she took the baby and went on. And I was like, oh my God, I saw all these beautiful women who were representative of us. And I was like, God, I mean, I drove from Oklahoma, where I live now. Melvin was mad all the way through. It was storming. I was like, whatever this storm is, it's not going to stop us. We're going to keep going. And we got there. And it was just like, when that door opened, you could feel the vibration.
You could feel it. I mean, directly,
like I still be there if you were there.
Yes. I still communicate with Nafisa. She's in Alabama now. I still communicate with, and it's funny things like, it's a sister named Sona. I don't know if you remember Sona.
That was in Chicago. Now she's in New York. Chicago.
So Sona and I know she's still in Chicago. She just got a position with the organization in New York. And so it's funny because we connected first online, like via Twitter. Then we was at Matrona. Then we was in ICTC together. We see each other, not ICTC, but we went to an ICTC training in Trinidad and Tobago together. And we see each other sometime on social media, but now with her new job and a contract that I have, we are back together working again. And the first thing is like, oh my God, remember Matrona? Like, it's like we go back to Matrona.
Because it was quantum. It was quantum energy.
Yes.
And that quantum energy lets you know that there is no time. Linear is not there. It's not there. It just is.
We leaping.
Yeah.
I feel like it created a different kind of relationship with Mama Saran, because I knew her. I don't know if she knew me before then, but it allowed me to spend a different kind of time in her space.
Yeah.
Because Mama Saran is like old school truth. So you can't just get in her face. She got a long waiting list if you want to talk to Mama Saran. But I think that was a really good opportunity to network with her. It created a relationship with my sister Sista Berry. She's a midwife out of Atlanta.
Yes.
Like it's a number of people. It's the sister Ashley, who I love to follow on Instagram. She's the early childhood enthusiast. She was at the matronal. Now she's not a birth worker per se.
I remember Ashley.
The connection between birth and our babies, because she worked with the babies in their minds right out the womb, them early minds, right? And so, yeah, man, yeah, I loved it. And I love just seeing people from time to time from that period and from that experience. And we both can continue to connect that was a thing. It was a real thing. Because if you wasn't there, we might sound crazy. But if you were there, I remember when I got pregnant with Kaylele, my matronal sisters was the first ones I told, because we had a group. I was like, I'm telling y'all first.
Yeah, I remember that. And like, it's just, you know, it's just so funny how time, it just moves. But when you are in alignment with time, those memories, you know, they become imprinted. So that you can always go back and follow that thread that was woven together, right? Yeah. And so like, that's how, you know, how I feel in connection to our relationship. It's like all these things that, like, you know, a quick phone call or a text, you know, and just being able to jump in and just say, hey, you know, just checking in, or a box, or just anything that lets you know that you're being thought of, right? Yeah. And so that's what I think sisterhood is about, especially in this work, because it's so easy for people to fall out of alignment with each other, because the work sometimes makes people hungry and competitive, because people want to be the ones, you know, and so there leaves no room.
And burned out.
Yeah. And you
clearly.
Yeah, exactly. You're not sleeping, you know, all of those things. And so like in that, like, this is us like leaning into, like, speaking about how important sisterhood is with this work.
It is. I mean, you cannot do this work alone. You can't. I mean, if the people who do it all the way alone are the ones who burn out the fastest, I think. You got to have a support system. You have to have people you can laugh with, people you can cry with, people who also understand the work, so that when you do have a loss or a win, and when I say loss, I don't mean like a pregnancy loss, I just mean whatever that means to you, right? Whether you're winning or losing, they understand the game. And so they can sometimes get, well, girl, this is how I changed my social media up and I got more clients. Well, girl, this is how I, you know, tweak my class, so that, but again, you have to have sisterhood, that you're not afraid to share a little nugget here and there, right? That's one thing too. Oh man, I've heard a lot over the years, and I still hear it, unfortunately. I've heard a lot over the years that there is no sisterhood, it's, you know, whatever. And I did a YouTube video years ago about it. Like, I was like, there is no competition unless you create it yourself. Because the families, the students, the women who want to work with me, they want to come to me. Even if you was available, they wasn't coming to you because you ain't me. And the families and the communities and the organizations and the opportunities that's coming to you, they not gonna never come to me, because they not for me, they for you, you know. And I don't mean you as in you, but like ubiquitous you, like, and a lot of times we get caught up in, you know, I'm like, listen, when I'm doing my training, I'm like, y'all, trust and believe. It is enough mamas for everybody. We got so many people out here who need help, education, upliftment, hugs, and support. There's enough. It's enough.
Yeah. And I think that's a healing in and of itself, right? That's a healing in and of itself, that lets you say that there's enough.
Yes.
And that your people, like, even in the aspect of intersection of information, you might have some information that my people need. And I need to send my people to you. And then you might be able to refer to.
Okay, that too.
And bring it back. Because that's what we also, like, you know, don't nobody know what I know, or can't nobody teach better than I can teach. But we don't know everything in all things. We know
Right.
parts. And
Yes.
so when somebody else can bring you a part of something, like you said, a nugget or a jewel, then that means that they may be able to express it, but you may be able to deliver it and to really transform it into somebody, to work it into
Yep.
somebody. So it becomes a collective consciousness that you're trying to produce versus a silo of something.
Yeah. And then they say, and when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right? So you might have had this mom for her first baby, but she's not the mom for you for her second baby. She's a different person. So don't even feel some kind of way about that.
Yeah.
You know, there are so many spaces, and like you said, how I teach it, you know, how I deliver a topic does not for some people, I might cuss too much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't cuss that much, but that might not be for, oh no, Nicole be cussing. Okay, well, don't come to my class. Sorry. You know, it ain't for you. So, and that's okay, because you want to go to a class where the people don't cuss. That's important. Know that. I could show you that class. I mean, yeah, I could show you a class like that, but don't nobody cuss. Okay? Because I might cuss in my class.
Right.
And I think that all of those things are important. And I still get trained and take training and take classes. Don't nobody know everything or have all the answers.
Yeah.
You know, I took divine class twice. Still need to take it again.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Right. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna tell you this, right? Like, in all of this work, we know it's essential. We know that it's important. We know that people need access to education, to support services, to all of these things. And as we continue to do this work, you know, what are some of the things that you feel like are going to be best, especially right now when we're dealing with COVID, and how we can work towards building capacity for our communities in a time of uncertainty? Like, what keeps the light on for you? Like, what tells you that even in the midst of all of this stuff, we still got to rock with that birth is a revolution? We still got to push this initiative to make sure that communities are safe, that families are safe, that mamas are safe, that, you know, partners are aligned with this work, because that becomes another topic, and we'll talk about that a later time.
Another day. Right? I'm telling you, yeah. I mean, so what I often say is birth is the revolution. And if we revolt, that is to rise up against the status quo and shift the way we think about pregnancy, conception, pregnancy, birth, and parenting and postpartum, we could literally elevate the vibration of our communities. And I think that now more than ever, it's important that we understand that birth is a revolution. And the beautiful thing is, I believe that there are many people who are awakening to the fact that birth needs to be different. They may not fully understand the revolutionary piece of it, or they might understand it in a very basic way, right? Like, yeah, I'm birthing at home. It's revolutionary. Yeah, sure. 1000% is revolutionary, but it's so much deeper than just you had your baby at home. Right? Particularly if you had your baby at home because you was afraid of COVID or something like that, right? It's deep, it's so much deeper than that. And for me, as we move into a continued wave of uncertainty, it is even more important that the next generation come forth uninhibited, that their imprints, you talked about imprinting, how we were imprinted at that matrona retreat. Our births imprint our newborns. They are imprinted at birth with what? With love, with peace, with harmony, with joy, or with trauma, disgust, anxiety, and panic. Which one? And if we are moving into a world of uncertainty in 20 years, I want the children who are supporting me as I transition over in 30, 40, and 40 years, as I transition over in 40, 50 years, I want them to be those who have come here uninhibited. Because, and see, this is the thing too, when I talk about birth is the revolution, what I often try to explain to people is I am not simply talking about the act of having a baby. I am talking about vibrational, epigenetic, cellular, esoteric metaphysical, microcosmic changes. So certainly, mom, if you had a C-section, you still love your child. I am not suggesting that because you didn't breastfeed, that you didn't love your child. I am not suggesting that because you had to go back to work at 6 weeks, that you don't care for your children. I am not saying that if you got an epidural, that means that you wanted less happiness, joy, and success for your birth or your baby. That's not what I'm saying. But what I do want you to understand is that every single one of those things matter at a microscopic, cellular, epigenetic, esoteric, metaphysical level. And for me, that shit matters. Because as we are talking about the new world that's coming upon us, that is upon us, the way things are shaking up right now, we got to begin thinking about generational epigenetic changes. And when I look at my friends' children, the ones who was born uninhibited with no medications and no drugs and breastfed for over a year, because it's also a continuum. We birthed a certain kind of way. We also parent a different kind of way. These children are different. And it's not just they've been here before. Sure. We are also working to intentionally cultivate a different type of experience for them. As far as I'm concerned, if we had 2 solid generations of uninhibited birthing, we could literally change everything that's going on. Because when we come here with a purpose and with a vision. But when your vision at your birth, it gets blocked. You get blasted in the face because you got a forceps on your head. You can't even think about your vision. You're trying to deal with this headache that you can't figure out. Now your mama's depressed because she feels like she did something wrong. So now her energy is not as good to hold you the way she wants to in her mind. But her heart is not open enough to receive you because of the trauma and the things that happen. That's impacting, that's that epigenetic. So now you're growing up feeling this kind of way, a different kind of way. Mm-hmm. And it's so deep. And I'm always like, I straddle this fence, sis, because I want people to know, no, I'm not suggesting that you're bad, you're wrong. It's no judgment, but there are cellular, microcosmic, epigenetic changes that happen
that are systematic. That are systematic. And that's what is not understood, is that there's a systematic culture that you are inducted into when you don't have the right information. When you don't have the right information, you make decisions that are a part of the causation. Yes. And when we don't have the education, then we can't be accountable. Yep. Right? So we're not saying that it's a shame thing when you experience those episodes or circumstances, right? We're saying that it is a part of our learning and a part of our system that has been instituted, that this is the standard concept. But when you step outside of the standard, when you start to really identify with the more ecological processes, then you start to see that epigenetic transfer becomes a heightened awareness that becomes a way for us to transition into traditional ecological knowledge. That is the real technology. So when y'all see me talk about technology, right? I'm not talking about the concept of using Zoom or Facebook. That's not it. We're talking about TEK. It's the internal traditional information that we have, that we have to be able to connect to so that we can have better outcomes. And we have to also understand that they are planning for not just the first 10 to 20 generations. They're putting these things in place for the next 100. What we are
experiencing today was created as 0 AD. This shit was a part of a worldwide plan from 2,000 years ago. 2022 years ago, to be exact.
Yes.
Right? Yes. So do not be fooled to think that this thing was created in the last modern Western. No, ma'am. No, sir. This thing being orchestrated. The simple fact that we use something called a Gregorian calendar, and then you have the Chinese New Year and the Japanese New Year and the Mayan calendar. But we in our culture and really across the globe, even when they celebrate their Chinese New Year, when it comes to economics and world globalism, they still dealing with the Gregorian calendar. So they have created an international system of oppression. And I believe that right now is prime time for us to understand the powers in all of these traditional technologies that we innately have inside of us know how to do. You know, in 2020, when everybody was at home, when everybody started learning how to do better, garden, right. Because we understand innately, and myself included, guess what my garden is doing right now? Overrun, grown with weeds, don't have no food in it, right? Because I too stopped paying attention to my garden when I got back into a different place and didn't have as much free time around. But rest assured, one of the things that I think is important as we move to try to thrive in a new way of being is to, and I understand that for some people it's a luxury, because I promise you that up until very recently, it was a pure luxury for me, but we have got to rest. It is, we have talking about the system, right? We have allowed the system to dictate what is success, to dictate what is completion, to dictate how we should want to call ourselves, who is important, who's not important, who's at the top, who's at the bottom. We have allowed the system to dictate that to us. And as Black people, allowing that system to dictate to us who we are will always put us unworthy, unlovable, unrestful, unwealthy, unabundant, because that's what the system was created to make us believe. So we have to abolish invisible, okay? So we have to completely dismantle that system, even if you cannot dismantle it at a city level, at a country level, you could dismantle that shit in your house. Dismantle the system in your house. Turn off the news. My daughter told me today, Lord, I said, Jesus, I gotta watch what I say in front of this girl. Not a big deal, but you know, they be listening to everything. So this morning, she said something about hurricanes. And I said, well, okay, Lele, yes. I said, but we'll worry about that in the summertime when hurricane season comes. We don't need to worry about that right now. So she said, well, you know, you gotta watch the news. And I know you're not really a news person. Wait, what? I said, how do you know that? She said, well, I've heard you say it a few times. I said, well,
oh
right.
My God.
I said, I don't really watch the news, you know, and sometimes I see something days later and I'm like, damn, I should watch the news a little bit more. But then I also understand that even if I had known that, what would that fact have done for me other than increased anxiety? Perfect example. The hard freeze and loss of power that happened across Texas last year, right? It was like 4 or 5 days before I found out about that. I was on Instagram and I was like, oh my God, what happened? Immediately, I have distress about the mamas and babies. Immediately, I go into anxiety and panic. Baby, I didn't need to be panicked over that for 3 weeks. I don't live in Houston. What I'm gonna do? So what did I do? I shared a flyer. I sent some money. I helped orchestrate this. It was a sister coming to New Orleans and making some supply delivery in Houston. So I helped introduce some people so she could get some more supplies. That's all I can do. So having learned about it, as immediately when it happened, I couldn't, all that it was going to do was give me more stress and anxiety. So you're right, baby. I'm not a news person. I keep up with the big picture things. And that sometimes is even too much. I'll go a week without watching the news. And I don't want to hear most of it because it's mostly negative. I was at dance class with my daughter yesterday. And it was a mom sharing with another person. You heard what they said? Somebody got carjacked over here. And the person robbed. And this person got shot. And da-da-da-da. Baby, that don't have nothing to do with me. Because what am I going to do about it? What can I do in this moment? Right. So I try to protect my mind and my spirit so that I can be healthy inside of my household at minimum. At minimum, we can dismantle that system in our homes.
Yeah, exactly. because the biggest part of everything is like, what is happening right now? Are you safe right now? Because what happened over here is not impacting our space at this particular moment in time.
Yes.
You know, so we have to be able to not to disconnect ourselves from the fact of wanting to be enmeshed into so many other things, so that it does not take us outside of the alignment. Doesn't mean you're selfish.
Now, go ahead.
It don't mean that you're selfish. It don't mean that you don't care. It means that in the time in which you are supposed to be made aware, that maybe by not being panicked in that moment, that you will react in a way that supports the best outcome, right?
Yeah.
So that way you're not worried and spinning out of control.
Was directly connected to carjacking crime, right? Like if I owned a car dealership, if I drove a brand new car, if I had a driving school and I taught people how to drive, then it might be more important for me to know about every single carjacking in the city. We have a splurge of carjackings going on right now. Protect yourself, lock your doors, put your purse on the back seat, on the floor. I mean, what? That's all I can do.
That's across the nation. I just saw that on the news here too. It's happening everywhere. So that's the thing. It's like you cannot be consumed. Yeah. Because then in not being consumed does not mean you don't care. It means that you have a different heightened awareness, and that when you say no weapon formed against me shall prosper, what does that mean? It means that you feel protected and you don't have to hold space for those negative connotations to be a part of your mind. Because I will say, when I saw that, I was like, do I need to be carrying my firearm everywhere? It's not like I'm gonna be riding with it on my lap. I ain't, you know, OG Pookie Loke like that, right? So if I'm doing that, right, then am I attracting to me this desire to have to react with what I'm putting myself in position for? Or am I saying that, you know what, that is what is taking place in the event that something like that does happen, prepare me to react in a way that is going to be necessary? Because I know for me, it's like, oh, you want the car? Okay, bye, thank you, I'll get another one. You know, but there's an event that's happening where people are being programmed into a mentality to believe and to think outside of themselves, when really we need to continue to think inside of ourselves, so that those things that we want to manifest attach themselves to us, and they begin to bloom from inside out. Yes. And that's what my hope is for this moment with you, is that we can discuss these types of things as women, our livelihoods, our life circumstances, experiences, our challenges, our wins. You know, how can we celebrate ourselves more? How can we use our voices and this be an amplifier of how well we are developing our mental health? Because that's important. Mental health is based upon programming. What you see and what you receive is what you return. Yes. And so I'm grateful. Flip that. Yeah. To be more gentle, more loving, more joyful, more positive. And it ain't even about being woo-woo or nothing, but it's real talk. Regardless of your outer circumstances, there are things that you can do to have a better existence in that. I mean, just as somebody who, you know, was in the hole for 30 years, how they survived. Because we have, unfortunately, Black men in that, you know, that kind of way. And they still survived and came out whole, not crazy, not mean, not arrogant, wanting to still give and teach and love people. It's a lot to learn. It's a lot to learn from something like that. Yeah. 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 And the Angola 3, that's who I'm thinking of right now when I thought of that. You know, it's like deep. It's deep, man. Yeah. I was listening to a podcast. I don't know if you ever listen to Abraham Hicks. I do. I love Abraham. One of the little clips of Abraham Hicks, and it was said, you know, we love a story of the underdog. She almost was died of cancer, then got hit by a car and her leg flew off, but she came back and she tried. Like, she was like, we can look at that and be inspired. But when we meet someone who just going about their day and they're doing good things and they're having a good life and they're thriving,
somehow we don't realize that they too have created this path of healing and awareness and elevation in their lives, because we all have an opportunity to stay down. We all have an opportunity to use negative vibrational activities, words, thoughts in our lives, regardless of where we are in our lives. And so, sure, when we see that person who was down and out and trodden or death, almost on their deathbed, and they've defied the doctors, surely we can look at that and be like, oh my God, that's so inspiring. But the reality is, if you, particularly, dearest Black woman, I love that, particularly if you are a Black woman in America and you get up out of bed every day and you take care of your children, and even if you don't, if you are still here working to be better, you doing it, baby, because it's a lot of forces against us. And so how do we then flip that to understand our power in that, and to move then in a holistic way to start just becoming better versions of ourselves, one day at a time, one cell at a time, one molecule at a time? It doesn't have to happen overnight. In fact, it's impossible for it to happen overnight. It's a growth in progress.
Yeah.
All of this.
It has to be done with grace and not with shame and not with resistance, because that's one of the biggest things that Abraham talks about is resistance brings contrast.
Yeah.
So when you're working out of resistance with contrast, what do you really want? Mm-hmm. Have the conversation. I had made a post this morning. Have the conversation about what you want. Talk to the money that you want. You talk to the relationship, the birth experience that you want to experience. Have the conversation, but we also have to be courageous to have that conversation with the reality of what it is that we are desiring to experience, right? Mm-hmm. And not be afraid, because that's the biggest part.
We have to have the conversation. And as they say, I'm not no big Bible reader, but it's some of them famous quotes that come out the Bible that's real. Faith without works is dead, right? So it's not just about making a vision board and putting it on the wall. Like even when I went to Sedona, right? I had to apply for the scholarship. Mm-hmm. It didn't just come to me. I had to apply. I had to put my work in. I had to put in a good essay. I had to, line it up. I had to make sure that my essay spoke to the requirements of the scholarship in a way that they would look at me as a desirable candidate for this scholarship.
Yes.
And I had to put Sedona on my vision board. And I had to affirm that I was going to be in Sedona and sit there in meditation and feel myself on the road from New Orleans to Arizona in Sedona. Like it was all of those things.
Yeah. If you can't see yourself achieving it, it makes it impossible for you to get to that destination. You got to see yourself there. You got to see yourself whole. You got to see yourself healed, and not to do it in an overexerted way, because we also have to rest in what that looks like instead of being so adamant and anxious to get there. It's the journey. It's the processing. You have to be able to experience all of those things in order for it to really be made manifest. Dearest Black woman.
I love it. And the more I am moving in my direction for more healing and more growth, it's just beautiful. I remember telling a young sister one time, one of the things that I love about each space of growth, whether we look at it in 7-year increments, 10-year increments, 9-year increments, whatever your numerology, you do all of that stuff. I'm not really into that, but I do know that my life has these cycles, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a cycle of elevation, a little bit down in a plateau. Then there's elevation down in a plateau. Like I feel like at every elevation, there's always a little bit of a couple of back steps, right? But at each elevation, the elevation is higher. Because I'm gonna say me, I've never gone back to ground zero. Yeah. And so each rendition of myself, so when people talk about becoming the best rendition of yourself, the best version of yourself, it is a constant tweaking of you over and over, putting on a little clay, taking off a little clay, using a chisel, like, right, if you're creating a masterpiece. It's a constant artistic shifting, smudging these colors together, adding a little bit of a different color, outlining it in this. Maybe now you're going to put it on top of up to make it like a, a carbon copy and add some feathers and some glitter, right? But it's a constant, every single cycle for me has been a new, and so it's so exciting because at this point, I've been through a lot of cycles. If we do a 7-year cycle, right, that's very common. People talk about 7-year cycles. I'm in my 7th 7-year. I'm at the end of my 7th 7-year cycle. It's a powerful time. Mm-hmm. And I could feel it. I can feel it. I can feel it in everything around me, how I speak, how I move, how I operate. And this is so annoying when people say this to me. I can't stand it, RaShaunda, when people are like, well, everything happened for a reason. We know these things, right? I think for me, that's often has been one of the difficult parts of the healing journey for me is whenever, because my point in saying this is it's okay to be pissed off and angry and sad and to vent and to be depressed for some time. Yeah. Sometimes we have to do that to be able to see the other side.
It's the shadow. The shadow has to come so that you can experience the light.
Exactly. When you at the bottom of the mountain is when you can see the mountaintop. When you at the top of the mountain, you can't see nothing but the valleys. So it's from in the valley that you can look up and aspire to greatness. And, it's okay that we go into the valley, and it is, so when those people are, they're just trying to give you them pep talks, baby, let me tell you something, because I just came out of a deep valley. It was very deep. Like I tell people I died. I metaphysically died. And it has been an interesting way back from that death. And the thing that used to drive me crazy, and what I had to learn to do is to stop seeking support outside of myself. Because the information, like one of the things that would come a lot would be, well, I mean, you have your daughter, that's the blessing. Bitch, you think I don't know I'm excited about having a daughter? That doesn't take away the negative things that happen at the end of my relationship. That doesn't negate the fact that I feel very hurt and abused and traumatized by the ending of this relationship. And that's what I'm talking about right now. I'm not talking about the blessing of my daughter. That's not what this is about. So I'm saying all of that to say, so what I had to do was realize they can't help me. Stop talking to those people. Mm-hmm. Just go inside, because what they're saying actually felt like more abuse to me. So find the right people who can support you in your journey. It might be different friends, or like we started off at the top talking about professional counseling with a professional counselor. And if you cannot afford counseling, one option that you could think about, and I know some people don't want to do this kind of thing, but just like the barber school and the massage school, you can go get a $10 massage and a $10 barber cut. You can go get you a $15 therapist at like a schools that do therapy. They have to have a clinic. There's this one school locally, they have a clinic where you can go, and it's like sliding scale for, and these therapy students are not like fresh out of high school, you know what I mean? There is a level, they know what they're doing already. It's just that they have to get a certain number of clinical hours. Right. So a supervised clinical hours. So there are options, there are options. Sister circle support groups. Find you a new circle.
Yeah. I had that conversation with one of my girls today, just on like the biggest part for me has been finding satisfaction. What satisfies you? Life is full of ebbs and flows. It's going to be up and down, up and down, up and down. But I'm learning how when I go and I have those high moments and I know I'm going to go down, I'm like this on the roller coaster and I'm holding my arms up and I'm screaming all the way down until it goes back up, because I'm going to enjoy that part too. I'm going to find some kind of satisfaction in this valley. I'm going to pick some berries. I'm going to find out what this flower is that I ain't never seen before. I'm going to look for things that I can still build a point of satisfaction for myself. Because there are going to be people, like you said, you're going to feel, and they're going to be like, man, you in my ear, and that ain't what I want to hear right now. But the deep part is what you want to hear is already speaking from the inside. But because it's so much information externally, you can't even get still enough to hear it. So you can get to the process of where you can start going up, up, up again.
Yes,
You
up
know,
again.
and
And
that's
you will go up.
timing. And there's no time for grief of a relationship or any kind of loss or any kind of, like, sometimes there's grief in transition going up. I have that kind of grief. Sometimes I have grief in leaving from one part of my career to plateau to go to another part. It's like I have to transition out of that space so that I can be expanded in this new space.
Yeah.
And so we don't talk about that. We don't talk about the grief of celebration.
No, you know, oh, sis, that's so deep, because in this work, right, there was a time when there wasn't like a lot of Black folks doing birth work in New Orleans. Now it's a whole bunch, right? And in the early phases of the transition of me moving away from direct services into the role that I have now, I would feel some kind of way. Why you didn't call me? Baby, because that's not your job no more. You have a new role in community that you must fulfill. This is your role now. Move into that, celebrate your new space. Be excited to look out into the field and be like, oh my God, I trained half of them. This is so exciting. They're serving the community. My work here is done. Yes, not complete, but this part, that little piece was done, right? In the
Let me
beginning,
put that notch on my belt.
Yeah,
let me tighten my belt up again.
Tough. I had to look, and then even today, when I get a phone call to serve a mom and I know I can't serve her, I be feeling some kind of way. Like, I wish I could, but I can't.
But let me give you this network. Let me give you this network that I've created so that she can be served at the fullest capacity.
Exactly.
At the fullest capacity, because even if you say yes, you know that no inside of you is saying that you're not going to give 100%, even though you can, and you probably would, but you're not going to chance that.
Nope.
To not be able to show up for your fullest. But you know that I have given these same tools that you want from me to somebody else that can really provide for you in the space that you really needed to be done. And that's a point of liberation that we don't talk about. The liberation of being able to say no. Not just saying no because we don't want to do it, but no because we want to be able to see it be done better than what we could do. Because right now, my time and space is here. Even though you might want me to stay here, that's like when people calling me about getting their hair done. I'm like, girl, I'm in the chair now. I'm in the chair. Yeah, I'm in the chair. Yeah. Like, I can't braid your hair no more because my fingers are being used to write programs and to sign documents. I'm not in that same space.
Yes.
So when you move through a certain space, you've got to be able to understand that there's going to be a feeling of remorse. And that celebratory remorse is real.
And it's okay.
And it's okay. Cry about it. If you drink, get you some champagne or some whiskey or some bourbon, whatever it is that you do, and have that toast to yourself, and then go take a nap and sleep on it. So that momentum can slow down. And then when you get back up, you feel good and you feel revived, because now you know that it's time for you to level up.
Level up, level up, level up, level up, level up, level up, level up. I remember when you did that challenge when you was pregnant. Did you do it in your pregnancy? Your last pregnancy?
Did. Yes. And I did. And that baby came right on down. That level was coming on down. Sure did.
I remember I was like, look at RaShaunda. I love it. Oh, I love it. Baby.
Yes.
Oh, have we covered everything, girl? Because I'm looking at this time. We've been talking.
We did.
And we could talk for hours.
I think we did. You know how we do. You know how we do. And that's it. Like, you just shared it. We shared all of like what it makes, you know, how do we create this safe space? How do we create the self-care? Like, you just named all of that in this last part, you know, so I feel like we complete. Do you feel complete? Is there any last things that you would want to share?
Girl, no, I just want us to come back and chat again. I feel like we can have some beautiful conversations together. We got so much that we've been talking about diving into. So, you know, let's definitely make it a point to next time I'm gonna invite you on my video podcast.
Definitely. I'm here for it. Yeah. Well, this is our outro, y'all. So I hope that y'all feel good about this conversation. And I want to thank you for tuning in to part 2 of the Dearest Black Woman Initiative for Black History Month, and that you will join us for the rest of our series, and that you guys will go and make sure, sis, tell them where they can find you again before we get out of here.
Yes, sistamidwife.com, SISTA midwife.com. That's my website. If you are looking for a Black midwife, doula, womb worker, lactation support, go to sistamidwifedirectory.com, search by state rather than city for best results. If you are on Instagram as Sista Midwife, if you are on Twitter as Sista Midwife, though I don't be tweeting, but I am there. If you are on Facebook, Sista Midwife will also find me. Yeah, SISTA Midwife. And watch for them hashtag BSP, a hashtag SMP Birth Sisters. That's mine. SMP Birth Sisters. They got your back. Look for that.
Definitely. I'm gonna make sure I put all that information in the link when we share this story today.
Sure,
and
for
we
sure.
invite you to continue and to get the link for the replay afterwards, and to make sure that you support our initiatives for our teen reproductive well-being event that's scheduled for March the 20th. And
Okay.
the replay of part 2 of this series can be found on our organization website. And if what you heard here today resonates with you and you're interested in training and birth work, we'll definitely share those additional resources with you as well. Follow us on www.timcenter.org, as well as beehivebirthconsulting.com. And be sure to follow us on social media at Dearest Black Woman, meaning dearest.blackwoman.org. Thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you all soon. Peace.